applying a reverse SEO technique to search reputation problems. Now, search reputation is a subset of the ORM industry. A lot of people who do online reputation management also do search reputation. Now, emboldened by a sense of anonymity, and I say a sense, it's somewhat naive, but a lot of customers feel pretty much like Mr. Heisenberg here, or the guy from Breaking Bad, right? And feel like they can go and say things on websites that will hurt your brand. And in fact, in the ORM industry, we've even seen professionals who are hired to find a vacuum in search engines, a vacuum on a keyword phrase that you're not doing too well on, where there's not a lot of content about you. And they specifically target websites on those keyword phrases to attack you. This happens more often than people are aware. So let me give you a visual on the problem. And in the same time, I'm going to dispel a myth that companies that need ORM have a higher order issue, like a customer service issue, for example. Here, you know this company very well, right? 1-800-Flowers. They're a category leader. They're an e-commerce pioneer. They started in the 90s, right? And their approach to customer service, I mean, you can't beat it, right? 100% smile guarantee, no questions asked. Give you the money back. You can't beat that. But if you go to Google today, this is a recent example, and you type 1-800-Flowers reviews, and there are thousands of people who do this. We know from the statistics we get from SEMrush and from the Google suggestions. You're going to see a lot of, bad ratings really right at the top. Consumer Affairs, Yelp, reseller rating, and if you go just below on Trustpilot, very much visible are things that say disgraceful misrepresentation. Another one says, I'll never order from them again, right? This hurts your brand. This hurts click-through rates, certainly hurts conversions. Here's another example. This goes back a while, involving JPMorgan Chase. And here, the person didn't put review or anything, just the brand. What comes up? Obviously, the first site is for JPMorgan. The second one is the careers website, which is quite normal. A lot of employees working there, so very active subdomain. But right below, in what we call universal search or blended search, is a newspaper article that stayed there quite often for a number of weeks, all right, reminding us why we shouldn't do business with that company or work for them. And this article isn't even, about Chase. It's related to them, right? A simple mention will trigger an article like this. And in a completely different variation of the problem is what might come up under Google Autosuggest when someone is typing your website or your brand name. Now, currently, I'm working with a company that had this problem and immediately saw a 30% drop in their sales. They're a seasonal company in the construction business. So, you could say that really hurt them very, very much. And if you've ever spoken to a professional or a business that's helped a search reputation problem, they're going to tell you that it could be a real nightmare and you can lose a lot of sales. There's a lot of studies that's out there. Not going to bore you with statistics. You can see for yourself. It says here from the London School of Economics that a 2% reduction in negative word of mouth will result in a sales boost of 1%. And a study that I like to reference very much from Dr. Lucas, Harvard. He found, when doing research, he isolated one industry, restaurants, in the West Coast, I believe it was Seattle, that a 1% increase in Yelp rating boosted the company sales from 5 to 9%. Now, if you look at that industry, it's a cutthroat industry, and the input costs, ingredients, the people you pay, the rent, per customer, that doesn't vary much. So 5 to 9% is extremely significant, right? It could be the difference between 1, you close shop, 5, you're very successful and profitable. And we know that local businesses are particularly vulnerable. If you look at the statistics from Bright Cove, and you might guess this intuitively, that doctors, dentists, restaurants are particularly vulnerable. Bed and breakfast, if you own a hotel bed and breakfast, they live and die by these Yelp ratings. And when people aren't Yelping, they're Googling, right? 84% of people are Googling to see what other people said about their experience with your brand. That's significant. And this is AC Nielsen statistic from last year. This year, we know that Google changed their algorithm to hurt Yelp very much. So this is just increasing. So I'd like the audience to think about Google not just as a search engine, but think about Google as a reputation engine. Okay? Reputation for your brand. And not just your company brand, but your personal brand. People are searching for you. Your colleagues are searching for you. If you're a business, customers certainly searching for you, investors are searching for you, and people pissed at you are searching for you too, okay? This is sort of like, let's see who else is out there looking for negative comments so they can add on those comments. We see it all the time. And when they do these searches, what do they find? This is a SERP, right? Search engine result page. 10% of the clicks on the ads, 90% of the clicks are on the organics. Anybody here click much more on the ads than on the organics? Not? Nobody? No? Just one person? Yeah. Why would you, right? So, it becomes really critical to really start understanding what the visibility and the clicks are on the organic results. And what we find when we look at that is that not very many people actually even scroll down on the results anymore. In fact, the 8th, 9th, and 10th search result get 14 times less clicks than the first result. These are Google statistics. And I don't know if people have read my bio. I've been in this search engine industry for 20 years. This year I'm celebrating 20 years. This is before Google people were, at university doing their PhD, right? Back in those days, the number of people that went to the second page was 40%. One of the keynote speakers did a before Google, after Google type analogy. After Google, that number came down to 10%. Today, 1 or 2%. So if I could draw an analogy to what's happening now, the number of people going down, it's about 10%. And 10 years from now, it'll probably be 1 or 2%. For many, many reasons. Google's doing a very good job at giving us the great search result at the very top. People are becoming more sophisticated in putting in the long tail search, and people are using devices like this for their search. If you use one of these, the only search result you see without scrolling down is the first result. You get the bigger Samsung, iPhone 5, the big one, you're gonna get 2 results. The mini iPad, 3 results, right? My point is we're all converting and becoming psychologically primed to not trust anything below the first couple of results, basically, at this point. So the question becomes, how do we get rid of these negative results that are near the top of the page? And there are many options. There's illegal options. That has a host of setbacks, right? There's risks risks that is related to jurisdiction, time-related risk, and the worst risk of all is a pushback, a backlash. The company attacking back, especially if you're asking them to remove something. There is also what a lot of people can think of is what we call negative SEO. A lot of people confuse negative SEO with reverse SEO. So negative SEO is basically tactics that are not allowed by Google, right? So think of a bunch of links from questionable websites, or anchor text in the links that are questionable, and that kind of stuff. The other way is also outright illegal, right? Some kind of distributed attack on the site, okay? So those kinds of things. Reverse SEO, basically, is when you develop a bunch of content and target the keywords that you're weak on, and then use that content to drive up those results. And essentially, what you're doing is overtaking the negative results. So, what it involves: developing and incorporating social media and user-generated content. A lot of e-commerce companies are dealing with 7 or 8 different platforms. We've identified 310 different sites that we use. We integrate some of these with the company's customer service. Now, if you don't have multiple CSRs that can drive customers to multiple sites, don't have to worry about that. There's a lot of agencies that will do that for you. In fact, there are agencies that will go and contact your old clients just to get them to write positive reviews on a host of sites, all right? Then you set up microsites with keyword domains that target what it is that you're trying to overtake. For example, in the 1-800-Flowers example, that could be the domain name 1-800-flowersreviews.com. And now there's the interesting top-level domains, the new ones, so you could get 1-800-flowers.reviews, right? And for anyone who is thinking into the future, I would also get the top-level domain .sucks, right? Or anything that could be perceived as negative, all right? It's a small investment versus having to pay lawyers later on, okay? Then you create unique content like videos. Those of you who know SEO know that integrating videos on sites gives a boost from an SEO perspective. Creating blogs and wikis. A lot of people have one blog for their e-commerce website. You can have multiple. Some people talked about that, one for each product. Wikipedia, I did a study with my students. Of the Internet Retailer 500, just over 100 did not have a Wikipedia page about them. So something like 21%. You want to issue press releases, giving links towards your new microsites, and generally applying SEO techniques, which is the bulk of the difficulty and the time spent to push these sites up. And you want to update the sites that have had the most level of traction very often, because we know Google likes fresh content. As for the Autosuggest example, just realize that Google's approach to this is algorithmic. All it's doing, every X period of time, is looking at searches that are relevant and basically updating them. Now that X depends on the number of searches, the universal number. So it's sort of a sampling methodology, if you will, right? And for a small to mid-sized company, it's roughly every 45 days. So as long as you can manipulate the searches, within a 45 days, Google will actually add one more possibility and kick out an old one. That's the way that works. And eventually, after a few months, you could probably target every one of them. By the way, those taking pictures, if you just type in Google reverse SEO presentation in any language around the world, this comes up number one, okay? So it's that simple. And you can download it, all right? So that's the way that works. For those of you who listen to this presentation, don't have a reputation problem currently, and are looking forward to your lunch, the key takeaway I would say for you is own your brand, state your claim on social media, identify those user-generated content sites and social media sites that allow you to control the URL on those sites, and it should be your brand, and basically develop content and curate information about your brand in multiple places. It doesn't have to be part of your core content marketing strategy. For those of you who have a search reputation issue, here's what I have to say. You want to choose a partner very carefully. You want to see where the source of the problem is. Try to identify what is the likelihood of there being a pushback or a backlash if you went the legal route. If you choose to do a reverse SEO technique, choose your partner carefully again. Make sure that they have proper SEO credentials, that they've managed SEO projects on the same scale. And then discretion, I would say, is the most important thing in ORM. As soon as people know that you are trying to resolve your problem by gaming Google, there's an interested counterparty on the other side. Oftentimes, we've started projects only to realize that there was someone else on the other side trying to undo our work. It's an ugly side of the ORM business, but I did want to shed light on it before I left you. And with that, I'm just going to ask to see if there's any questions.
Have you heard ever that some company used these techniques against their competitor?
Absolutely. That's what I was saying. Sometimes we enter a project, and within a few weeks, we see traces of it. And we test and find out, yeah. So that's what's happening. There was a question on the other side. Yes?
What about the moral issue?
It's an old-fashioned thing.
The moral issue is an old-fashioned thing? So somebody asked the moral issue. Do you want to elaborate on it? I'll give you a chance to elaborate. Yeah.
Let's say, I mean...
So, I did promise it to be entertaining, People are going to think that I paid you to do that or something.
Maybe she wants to take over the show.
Yeah. So go ahead, elaborate.
No,
Yeah.
because I'm partly in the same business as you.
Yeah.
Also for a long time. So, for example, it happened to me that a murderer was calling us to say, okay,
Sure.
I want to have everything clean.
Yeah.
But also that really, that companies that really did some things.
Heinous crime, let's say. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe it was not, it could be against the law, or it could be a moral issue.
A moral issue. No, I understand where you're going with this, and I'm glad you brought it up. When you're in this business, for those of you thinking, hey, this guy's an interesting business, we'll join in that business too. Yes, you will get calls from people that will test your moral standing. I do get from time to time calls in North America, never from Europe, like child molestation, for example. That a private investigator caught them with the parent on the phone line, uploaded to YouTube, and now they want me to go and take that down, So, we just basically, there's a line that we draw, and then we never cross that line, And I like the question because our industry, in general, doesn't have any oversight, right? We don't have a bar association or anything like that, So that's why you have to choose your partner very carefully also, for that same reason. But yeah, that's the way we deal with that. Whenever it becomes a question of the law, we pass it on to the jurisdiction where, in Europe, for example, there is this right to be forgotten, right? If you did something, you might apply for Google to take it down after a certain period of time, but then Google will probably leave it on if it's a question of quote-unquote public interest. That's the statement that Google makes. And I think that, that call that I got, for example, that's of public interest, so we don't cross that line, Like, great question, I like, yes.
In that sense, it's also very interesting. I also work for a news site.
Yeah.
And if Google removes something in SERPs, you get a message.
Yes, of course.
So I perfectly can see who is working on this.
Yeah, against you, yeah. Yeah.
I was wondering, actually, use a lot of these techniques on my own sites, but a lot of the private blog networks got posted last year in September.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, do you ever use the link disavow tool of Google, or do you not use it because you inform Google?
Say that again?
The link disavow tool. Because a lot of sites are now disavowing questionable links.
Yeah, in our practice, very often we're not using that. It's because we're building credible links. As for the bot, like the private blog network, we don't use private blogs. We use microsites. Completely different. The blogs were being used for people to comment on and make a link back. That was kind of easy to see, right? So we don't go with that technique. It doesn't pay. The return on the investment isn't there. Basically, that's what I would say. Yes.
I have a question. Let's say you find someone who's manipulating the Google Autosuggest.
Yes.
And we hire you. What do you do?
Yeah. So then there's a cyber surveillance sort of issue, right? To trying to figure out what's happening. So we try to undo it, but if we see that someone else is doing it, we inform Google about it.
Okay.
That's kind of like our approach, And there's a lot of cyber surveillance that we do, because a lot of people use forums and known websites to farm out. So, for example, those links that I was talking about with the anchor text or the links from questionable sites. So we could find out the IP address. We can turn it over to the client, subpoena the website to find out who that user is.
And then you could go to Google.
The client could do it. We're now incorporating the legal feature. All ORM companies now, I don't know if the gentleman there wants to chime in on this, but I think all ORM companies are getting legal help too now. I think that's where the direction is going, because the full solution is not always with technology, but you have to, I think, try this approach before you go to legal route. And I'll tell you why. I mean, I hope I'm not taking people's time here, but we see examples, including a personal friend of mine, I don't know if I want to put this on video, but who had an issue on a cheater site, right? I don't know if you know what those are, like Cheaterville, bad boy report. So, in a relationship, if things don't go well, somebody reports you for the whole world to see. Basically, that's what that is. I thought it was some confused faces there. But essentially what happened is, he went to the lawyer to write for the site to take that out. The site owners got really, really mad, cited their First Amendment rights, you know, and safe harbor, because they're not the ones, you know, sort of who wrote that. Somebody else, a third party, wrote that. So they basically got mad and put my friend on the front page, and he got 6 million views. And the worst thing you could do is what he did in reaction to that is he took down his Twitter, his Facebook, and his LinkedIn. And because Google likes content that's old over new, you know, it pushed everything that site up, and now he can't get it overtaken. Slowly, it's been about a year. The Twitter is #1 now, but the Facebook, LinkedIn, all those things are behind. That's the worst thing you could do. That's why I say those 310 sites, go out there, own your brand, a protective measure. It's worth your time, trust me. Any other questions? Yes.
Does a strong brand help you protect yourself? Is it better a means of forcing somebody to take it down if they misuse your brand name?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, a strong brand, first of all, a strong brand will, you know, there's going to be a credibility issue, right? Whoever's writing negative things about you, it's going to be looked at, maybe this is a one-off, you know, or it's clear that people are attacking this company unfairly. Less people are going to believe it. Strong brand means a lot of people are coming to your websites, to your blogs, to your Wikipedia, to a lot of things. So yeah, you have a natural protection in a strong brand. When you, you know, when you look through my client roster, you're never going to find, you know, a company like, let's say Zara here, you know, you don't have that. But I have a client that does 160 million, but they're not a brand name. They do it in a distributed fashion. You know what I mean? So yeah, strong brands always help. But as you saw at the beginning, they're not completely immune from the problem. Any other questions? Enjoy your lunch. Enjoy the conference. Enjoy Barcelona.